Hello everyone. Today, I, Shivansh Bansal and Shivan Joshi, the founders at Law Community, are here with Ojasvita Srivastava. She is a qualified lawyer and experienced in-house counsel with experience in litigation, arbitration, and corporate compliance. She also runs a pro bono initiative called Project Abhimanyu. She has pursued an LLM in Commercial and Corporate Law at the Centre of Commercial Law Studies, Queen Mary, University of London, where she served as the Communication and Media Co-ordinator of her specialization. Ojasvita was also the co-founder and chief editor of the Sophist Queen Mary Law and Business Journal, which publishes articles on law, businesses, and politics. We are here to know more about her journey and learn from her. So my first question is, what inspired you to pursue law as a career? And can you share your experience at law school with us?
Okay, so I was not supposed to be a lawyer, or I did not plan on becoming a lawyer. I was a science student and I was studying PCMB, and I had all intentions to become an engineer or an architect. But then it so happened that I met the additional Advocate General of Goa through some family friends. And I got very inspired by him. I was very impressed by him. I was impressed by his books collection and his office and, the entire subject of law, because before that, I never met a lawyer. I never knew what lawyers did. I'm the first generation lawyer and I'm the only lawyer in my family. So law happened more by chance, I would say. And then I wrote the entrance exam, the All India entrance exam. And before I joined law college, I actually started interning in the office of the AG back then. It was a great experience, I would say. Throughout my 5 years of law school, almost 3.5 years was spent interning. So we used to have a college in the middle of the day from 12 to 5. So before college and after college was pretty much in the AG's office, meeting clients, going to court, briefing senior counsels, handling a lot of election petition matters, getting involved. So that was majority of my law school experience. During law school, I did a lot of moot courts. I had, I would say, a great affinity towards litigation. I really loved because I saw my mentor do that in the court day in and day out. So I was very impressed. I definitely wanted to do litigation as soon as I graduated. So yeah, law schools was basically internship and moot courts.
Okay, ma'am. My next question is, can you share your experience of masters from Queen's Mary University, and what advice would you like to give to the people who wants to do masters from a foreign university?
Okay, so I started my LLM, or I did my LLM after 3 years of experience in the profession. And that is the first advice that I would give to anybody who's planning on doing an LLM. That it's not a very good idea to just jump into a master's or a specializations right after graduation. Because a master's or a specialization is basically learning very specialized knowledge about a topic or a subject without actually having practical experience in the profession. It doesn't make any sense to specialize because you don't even know what you really like. So trial and error is not a good thing. It's a big commitment to go for a master's. And then it's also a commitment towards that subject for the rest of your life, professional life. So the first thing that I would say is definitely choose it wisely and do it after a few years of experience in the profession. Secondly, when you are choosing a law school, choose what is your specialization, what you want to, really graduate in. So there are two schools of thought on this, basically. Some people say that it doesn't matter what your specialization is, just go for the biggest law schools. So everybody should just go to Harvard or an Oxford or a Cambridge. The other school of thought is look at what is it that you want to specialize in. So if I want to do or specialize in litigation or arbitration, then I should go in for a law school that has specialized professors or a specialized law school only and only for that subject or that area of law. So that is the other school of thought. I belong to the second school of thought, I would say. And I was very keen on arbitration, on litigation, like I just told you, right since college days. And so I decided to go to Queen Mary, which has a specialized school of arbitration and a Center for Commercial Law Studies. We had a QC teaching us arbitration, which is pretty unique, I would say. And my experience was fantastic. I was the media coordinator for my specialization. While I was there, I also started a law journal, the Queen Mary Law and Business Journal, along with some other colleagues and friends of mine. Um, Another thing that I want to share that is very important to know before anybody starts or decides to do an LLM is that an LLM is not like an MBA. So it's not that you're going to do an LLM, come back to a very great paying job. I did an LLM on a sabbatical, so I was working for a company, I left, came back and joined the same company. But a lot of students expect that they're going to come back, and a lot of them do it right after graduation, so they don't have a lot of experience. And just because of an LLM, they think that they are great IPR lawyers because they specialize in IPR, or they are great arbitrators because they did an LLM in arbitration. It doesn't work like that. In our profession, your experience matters more than your education. So I would say it's good to keep that in mind when you're setting out to do an LLM.
So, what inspired you to run an initiative like Project Abhimanyu? Can you give us an insight into Project Abhimanyu?
Yep. So, like I told you, I'm a first generation lawyer. I don't have any lawyers who I saw around. And in general, my experience as a first generation litigating lawyer was that it's not very easy if you don't have a background in law. People usually tend to suffer more, struggle more, and suffer may not be the right word, struggle is the right word. And if you have somebody in your family who's a lawyer, or if you come from a background in law, it becomes a lot easier. And I think the major difference is mentoring. And this was my experience when I was initially a lawyer or joined the profession, and then the same thing I saw among my colleagues after the LLM. Even after an LLM, even after going to London and coming back, they were colleagues of mine, first generation lawyers who were struggling to find a job. And that's when I thought that maybe we need to do something about this. And that's how Project Abhimanyu came about. So it basically focuses on providing free mentorship and guidance to first generation lawyers and law students from tier 2, tier 3 colleges across India. We have worked so far with students from more than 80 colleges. We've been around since July 2015, so almost 5 years now. We have 70 mentors on board from across India, including general counsels, law firm partners, independent practitioners. Initially, it was just online mentoring and guidance, and helping students prepare for interviews and things like that. We also started doing career guidance workshops, and recently we've started working on, or actually have done and completed, a training program to bridge that gap that you have between law college and the profession itself. So what is taught in colleges is actually not sufficient for the profession. There's a lot of professional skills, soft skills as a lawyer that one needs to have, which are not there right now or not taught in colleges. So we worked for almost a year and a half with some very senior professionals, with trainers of law firms like Clifford Chance. We developed materials. Then we ran the program in 2 law firms in Mumbai. We tailor-made it. We polished the program. And now we're hoping that we should be able to implement it in law colleges so that, anybody who joins the profession has some basic skills. Because in India, we don't have any training program. So in the West, before you become a lawyer, to qualify as a lawyer, you have to go through a training contract or some kind of a training for a year or 2 years. In India, we don't have any of that. So that gap is always there. It's always watch and learn. If you have somebody in your family who's a lawyer, it becomes very easy. Otherwise, it's a tough task. So that's what Project Abhimanyu has been up to. That's what we've been doing. And of course, all our work is pro bono. And we really hope that the kind of struggles that so far a litigation lawyer has gone through, or people in my generation maybe have gone through, shouldn't continue to happen for the future generation of lawyers.
Okay, ma'am. So my next question is, what were some challenges did you face in your initial years when you started as a corporate lawyer?
So, as a corporate lawyer, I started after 3 years of experience in litigation. So, litigation and corporate law are two very different things. I think as a litigation lawyer, we are thinking more about the law. We're thinking more about how to interpret it, how to find a solution based on what is all there. Your focus is more on law. Whereas as a corporate lawyer, your focus is more on solution. Your focus is more on the most viable option, not just legally, but also economically. So you start thinking in numbers, you start thinking of profits and losses, you start thinking if there are 6 options, which is the one that is fastest to implement, which is the one that is cheapest to implement. So that sort of a thing, that sort of a psyche takes some time to change. Another thing is, I think as business lawyers, we start to be more precise in what we say. We start to be more, we start to understand how business works. Time is money. So when you're talking to somebody who's not a lawyer, who's in the management, when you can say something in 10 words and you use 100 words, which is what usually lawyers do, then that's not very, welcome in the business. So I think that is a huge change that I had to go through to start writing in brief, to start writing very precise, very to the point, and plain English. So lawyers like Shashi Tharoor, are inspired by Shashi Tharoor, like to use very flowery language. We have had judgments that go into thousands of pages, which is just ridiculous. You look at the judgments of a EU Supreme Court, and you find that it's just 4 pages, 5 pages. And that is the highest court of the European Union, 28 of the largest and the most advanced countries in the world. But we still have these lawyers using and judges using such flowery language. But when you are a business lawyer, when you're talking to people in management, when you're talking to people who are from civil law countries, they don't like such long answers or such long or such difficult words. So you learn to use plain English. I think that was also a big change, I would say.
Yeah. So my next question is, how is your day-to-day work look like as a General Counsel of Securities Group?
Okay, so as a general counsel, there is a lot on your plate, which is, not in terms of volume, but also in terms of variety. So it's not that you're only dealing with disputes, it's not that you're only dealing with litigations or arbitrations, you're also dealing with contracts, you're also dealing with tenders, you're also dealing with employee grievance redressal. You're also dealing with how to make sure that the company is compliant with various laws, companies compliant with the internal policies, how to train your staff, how to make sure that if you're working with a paralegal and he's not a lawyer, then how do you train that person to make sure that you don't have any kind of a gap? So it's a huge variety of work, I would say. I joined Securitas as a general counsel about 9 months ago. So before this, I was a legal counsel for 3 countries in Asia Pacific, but now I have 16 countries with 16 different forms of laws. Most of them are common law countries, but then there are also countries following Islamic law. There are countries that have civil law systems. There are so many different time zones, it's ridiculous. So I think trying to manage all that, and because you are learning or you have so many countries and you have so many different forms of laws, a large chunk of my time also goes in learning about different laws. So right now we're doing a project on data protection, and we have 16 countries with 16 different data protection laws and requirements. And then we are a Swedish company, so we are governed by GDPR at the group level. So how to make sure that you are compliant with all these different countries' laws. And then, as technology advances, as countries become, or, as you start working more remotely, data as such starts going or flowing into other countries or other parts, and you have data centers. So it's not that, you have somebody in India using data in our company. It's not that the data is going to stay only in India. That same data is going to go and be saved in some other data center outside of India. So you have to be compliant with the laws of all the countries to which the data is accessed, to which the data is sent, from which data can be accessed. So yeah, I think this is also an interesting part as a GC. You will keep learning so many different laws. Laws keep evolving, laws keep changing, so you have to keep yourself updated with all these laws as well. And I think one new thing that in general I see happening a lot among GCs is the renewed focus on ethics and values. So far, I don't think this was such a big thing. It was more of a support function, more of a day in, day out, just do contract review, make sure that, our liabilities are capped and things like that. But now, with the kind of penalties that are coming in on companies for non-compliance, for lack of values of ethics, for, say, violations of competition law, or for violations of compliance with, any other kind of human rights related laws, those kind of things which are considered to be soft law, I would say as well. So I think it has started falling in the bucket of the general counsel to make sure that these things also are taken care of. So I think that's pretty much everything that I...
Okay, ma'am. My next question is, what changes do you see in the legal sector post-COVID-19?
So I think the changes that have happened post-COVID-19 are very obvious for everybody. Things are remote. Everybody who thought that you have to be present physically, you have to rush to court, you have to wear 3 layers of paraphernalia, and you have these codes and everything. Everybody understands that all that was not required. And I'm saying this in light of that lawyer yesterday who appeared before Supreme Court in a t-shirt lying in his bed. So obviously that's another extreme. But then, I think everybody understands that legal functioning can happen remotely. That is already present in the corporate world. Businesses of billions of dollars are running across the world. Your Facebooks and Amazons and Microsofts are not necessarily happening in person. They're happening online. So COVID has pushed the legal industry to, catch up with that. Things have gone paperless. That is so fantastic because there's, you're saving the environment so many times more. All the travel restrictions have brought out the carbon footprint. I know lawyers that used to travel extensively for some or the other reason, but a lot of time it was avoidable travel, I would say. And I include myself in that list. A lot of things that could be done remotely, we just used to travel for it. And COVID has made sure that we don't do that. So that is another good welcome change, I would say. There was a lot of push for transcription in Indian courts, recording of proceedings, remote viewing and everything, which I would say in general, the legal industry was hesitant. So we have transcription as a rule in all the, most of the Western countries. You don't, even if you, are at a court of appeal, you can look back at whatever was spoken at the lower court or at a previous hearing based on the transcripts. You don't have that in India. You could say something in court and then the court recording, court order could come up with something completely else and nobody knew what happened in court. So I think COVID-19 will push that. Of course, there's already online broadcasting of hearings. Majority of it are public hearings. So that is a big change. If transcription does come into India and it becomes a rule, that would be a welcome change as well. I think that's a lot of changes for 3 months to accomplish.
So, what advice or suggestion would you like to give to those professionals who have just started their career in law, or to the law students who are still studying?
Okay, so let's start with the law students who are still in college. I think a lot of students, parents, teachers think that you have 5 years of law college. That's a long time. And you don't have to worry about, specializations. I see a lot of students who are lost. If I ask them in their 4th year and 5th year, what do you want to do? I don't know, ma'am. I don't know. What am I going to do? I've not decided. Their internships have been in pretty much everything across the board. They start off with an NGO and then they do some litigation and then they go into some corporate and then they just confuse themselves even more. So I as law students, I would say in your first 2 years, I don't honestly shouldn't be saying this, but I'm not very much in favor of somebody doing internships in NGOs as law graduates or law students, because it does not add any value or help you develop as a lawyer, unless you are very keen on charity work. And I think working for NGOs should happen throughout the semester. It's not that you spend your vacation time doing your 30 days or whatever internship in an NGO. That is something that should come throughout your 5 years, throughout your semester. So the first 2 years or maybe 3 years at max, you should spend in trying to see the different varieties of specialization. It could be litigation, it could be IPR, it could be arbitration, it could be competition law, it could be whatever you feel like. Maybe you do a moot court on IPR and you get very fascinated and you want to do IPR as an internship topic. So first 3 years, explore what is there, explore litigation, explore in-house, explore everything that is there or the specializations that are there. And in your last 2 years, you should be very sure what you want to do and do all your internships and everything focused only on that. So I've seen some students who have, say, for example, come with a background in CS or CA, and they're very sure that they want to do only that, or they have a background in tax, and they would do all their internships in tax, and they would do everything in tax, or their moot courts in tax. And when I see a student like that, and I'm a tax professional, I'm obviously going to hire that person, because that person has shown consistency, that person has shown consistent interest, and that person has also acquired more knowledge over the years because he's been so focused on that area of law. So even if you don't come from, you're not a person who is very sure, at least in your 4th and 5th years, you should make it a point that you know exactly where you want to land up at the end of your 5 years course. And try to explore everything. It shouldn't be that, you just start off in your first year, you do. So I was very keen on litigation. I did litigation. I did only litigation and nothing else. And then I entered litigation, and I realized after 3 years of litigation that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my career. And I made a switch. But imagine if I had started as an in-house legal counsel, maybe not been as confused. I probably would have been somewhere else, or I would have grown into something else. I don't say that my litigation experience of 3 years was discounted, because it definitely stood me in stead. But yeah, I never really explored what say a competition lawyer does. I never really explored what an IPR lawyer does. Maybe if I did that, I would be fantastic at it, but we would never know. So use your time at law school to explore all the different types of laws. Young law graduates, I would say, don't jump a lot. I see a lot of law students, law graduates, young lawyers working somewhere for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and then jumping. And I come across, or I talk to a lot of students because of Project Abhimanyu. We run a job portal, so a lot of students do stay in touch with me, keep asking me questions. Ma'am, I'm not getting paid very well, so I want to move, or the attitude of the lawyer who I'm working with is not very good, or I feel like I'm stagnated, or I'm not learning much, and I already know everything in 6 months that this office is going to ever teach me. You may think like that, but it is not always like that. It does not reflect well on your CV. If I am a lawyer and I see somebody has only worked at 6 months and then jumped somewhere, I'm going to question that person why you did that, because it's not possible to learn everything there is to learn in 6 months. So to make sure that you don't do something like that, it's good to assess the place where you're going to join before you join. So make sure that you either do some internship there, you get to know the person, you ask other people what the attitude of the bosses or the partners there is before you join it. That would be the first thing. And the second thing that I want to, just maybe drill into the brains of anybody who enters into this profession is that it is a profession. It's not a business. It's not a money-making tool. If you work hard, if you're really good, if you do your work well, you will get money. But don't just run after money. I see people, law graduates, who call themselves lawyers, but are simply doing events, who are doing conferences, who are trying to, give out awards by taking money from people. It's just irritating to the max that you did 5 years of law to become a businessman. Don't call yourself a lawyer if that is what you want to do. there is no value of no importance of values and ethics that I see in these people. I don't like to call them lawyers because they have made it into a business and they don't treat it as a profession. So I think that's all. I'll stop at that.
Last but not the least, ma'am, how can an organization like Law Community prove beneficial to the legal fraternity, and what new avenues are expected by the legal professionals such as yours?
So I think you're doing a good job by speaking to different lawyers, because I see as law students, I did not know what an in-house lawyer does. I did not know the life of, or what the aspirations of a lot of these lawyers are. And by doing these kind of interviews, you are exposing law students to see that. Another thing that is very good about what you're doing is that not everybody is living in Mumbai or in Bangalore or in Delhi. There are law colleges in some very remote past places. Through Project Abhimanyu, we did workshops in places like Sefai, Tawa, Ligar. So there are law students there, there are law colleges there, some very talented, good lawyers there. They can get access, they can know more about lawyers, they can know more about the profession through this community that you are creating. I think this online thing is just completely revolutionized, legal education or education in general, not just legal. So I think that is a fantastic job. And if there is a LinkedIn sort of a thing for lawyers, where you can talk to people, you can meet people, you can get mentorship, that is fantastic. I hope there is no very expensive services that you guys decide to go into, because the idea or the reason why we need something like this is to reach the last mile. Somebody who's studying in a big college or an NLU, or not all NLUs, but only the NLUs that like in the metros, don't really need these kind of support. They pretty much know everything. They have the exposure. They can get internships. It is those who are in tier 2, tier 3 cities, who are places like Nagpur. Harish Salve comes out of Nagpur University, and you cannot question the kind of brilliance that is there in that person. He is the best, if not one. I mean, he's one of the best, if not the best lawyer in India right now. So I think it is students who are studying in those kind of places that will really benefit from what you guys are saying. So congratulations and good luck.